Shalom. I attended 2 graduation ceremonies this week. It's a thrill to watch your child graduate from college. And of course, on that level, I was thrilled. But the length and tediousness of the ceremonies were surprising to me. You know, from time to time, people complain about boredom here at our services. Let me tell you something. We have nothing on these universities. It's almost as if the universities feel that they have to throw everything all at once at these captive parents in consideration or in compensation for the $200,000 tuition price tag that they've extracted. That these are secular ceremonies, as opposed to religious ones, should not diminish our perspicacity. Graduation ceremonies are quasi-religious anyway. You know, people wear special clothes for the occasion. There are distinctive rites and rituals that highlight the specific traditions of the institutions. The high priests of the institutions recite weighty words of wisdom. If you listen carefully, there are some ancient slogans recited in long dead tongues that give an air of ancient sanctity to the event. I most enjoy the commencement addresses. Their tradition, as you know, is for a wise sage to give final words of wisdom to the graduates before they embark on their journey into the real world. The expectation is to impart well-worn lessons. Stand up for what you believe is right, which is always good advice, unless you're wrong, in which case you should stand down. Stick to principle, which is always good advice, unless you stick to the wrong principle, in which case you are considered not principled, but inflexible. Be tenacious. It's always good advice, unless you're tenacious for the wrong thing, in which case people will consider you stubborn. Don't be afraid to fail. This, too, is excellent wisdom. I think that Churchill said it best of all. Success is going from failure to failure without loss of enthusiasm. But it's important to remember that the reason that this Churchillian advice is so powerful is that it was delivered by Churchill. The charge, "Don't be afraid to fail," wouldn't sound the same if it was delivered by Richard Nixon or Herbert Hoover or Bernie Madoff. So in between all of these rites and rituals and pomp and circumstance, I started daydreaming about my alternative commencement speech. What would I say to graduates on this day? I would say, above all else, devote your life to an idea. Stand for a cause, a value, some philosophy that gives context to your life and meaning to your labors. What do you stand for? What great principle or idea keeps you and preserves you? In the ordinariness of life, what is your extraordinary calling? What passion throbs inside of you that gives you no rest? What is the thirst that cannot be quenched? If there is nothing you represent, no grand idea that binds you to the past and to the future, then it is all technique. You may be eventually skilled at what you do, but it will become mechanical and ultimately unfulfilling because your soul is bound. You will become captive to smallness. You will believe only in yourself. There will be nothing to connect you to the ages. It's fine to prosper. We should all prosper. Recognition, affluence, distinction, these are fine. But praise is often cheaply secured and easily lost. If it is built on nothing, it will collapse over nothing. That is the distinction between solidity and celebrity. At some level inside of us, every one of us contemplates the ineffable. When we are done with self-absorption and self-veneration, all of us think about why? Why are we here? What is it all for? What is this miraculous mystery called life? What is my purpose? These questions never cease, and their urgency never diminishes. And because we were all made this way, people will respond to those who awaken inside of them noble sentiments. People will always be swept up by vision, by an urgent appeal to the better and the grander angels of our nature. I would have said to the graduates, help people to dream. Be the dream. I would have said to the medical school graduates, go ahead and be successful, but ultimately stand for healing. I would have said to the law school graduates, get that good job, high paying if you can, but stand for justice. To the graduates of the teaching colleges, I would have said, stand for virtue. Commit to shaping the next generation so that they will be better than us and will fix some of the wreckage that we leave behind. To the writers and the dramatists and the performing arts graduates, I would have said, your purpose is not celebrity, although that is fine. Your purpose is to allow us to peer into our very nature and to discover there what makes us human, to help us intuit the human essence. To the divinity and the philosophy students, I would have said, bring the moral sentiment that lies at the heart of the human creature into the real world of ego and suffering. Become one with the principle. You are the value. This ensures your distinctiveness. If we are mere technicians, in the end, we are imitators, not creators. Ralph Waldo Emerson considered imitation to be soul-numbing. In his own 1838 commencement address at the Harvard Divinity School, he cautioned, the imitator dooms himself to hopeless mediocrity. Life is comic or pitiful, he warned. As soon as the high ends of being fade out of sight and man becomes nearsighted and can only attend to what addresses the senses. Because then life becomes utilitarian, a mere journey of self-congratulation, self-indulgence, and self-adulation. And these are not what we live for. For in the end, they're not enough to sustain us. The purpose of life is a life of purpose. I was looking out at the 10,000 or so graduates of NYU, they who are now embarking on life's real journey. 10,000 individuals from one university, all gowned the same way, but all so different, and each unique. Our world is dependent on their successful journey as individuals and as a group. They are our future. We will soon entrust everything to them. This week's Torah portion begins a new book, the book of Numbers. That name, Numbers, is from the ancient Greek and Latin translations of the Bible, derived from the opening passages that describe the census that was taken of all the Israelites as they were preparing for the final push into the Promised Land. Little did they know that what should have taken 40 days would eventually take 40 years. And hence the Hebrew name for the book of Numbers is far more meaningful. We call it Bamidbar, in the wilderness. It implies the journey, the wilderness, the focus and locus of our people's formative years. 4 of the 5 books of the Torah take place there, Bamidbar, in the wilderness. Those years in the wilderness were hard. The people endured frustration and disappointment. They made mistakes, the likes of which they would have gladly expunged and erased from the annals of Jewish history. And when the Torah ends, the people are still Bamidbar, in the desert. They're still in the wilderness. They're still journeying towards the promised land, never actually arriving, always journeying towards the destination. And as I looked out at that sea of purple-gowned graduates at Yankee Stadium, I knew that these young people were in for a hard journey. Under the best of circumstances that may take some of them to the edge of the promised land, but no one would actually arrive. Our impulse for our own children and for all these other people's children is to warn them and to spare them from life's hardships and to remind them what we learn only much later in life. It is our destiny to journey and never quite to arrive. But the journey is the point. Marcel Proust may have said it best of all. No man, however wise, would have not some period of his youth said things or lived in a way, the consciousness of which is so unpleasant to him in later life, that he would gladly, if he could, expunge it from his memory. And yet, he ought not entirely to regret it, because he could not be certain that he had indeed become a wise man unless he had passed through all the fatuous and unwholesome incarnations by which the ultimate stage must be preceded. We are not provided with wisdom. We must discover it for ourselves. After a journey through the wilderness, which no one else can take for us.